Kylian Mbappé charged into the Senegal penalty area, went down under a challenge, and France were certain they had a penalty in their World Cup opener. What they got instead was a goal kick for Senegal. The forward many regard as the best in the world was left open-mouthed. France's supporters had already begun celebrating a spot kick that never came, and in the BBC studio, one of England's most celebrated strikers admitted he simply could not understand the decision. So how did an incident that looked, to almost everyone watching, like a clear France penalty, end up as a goal kick the other way? That is the question hanging over the opening night of France's World Cup, and it is the moment that overshadowed an otherwise straightforward evening for Didier Deschamps' side. To understand how the call was reached and why it provoked the reaction it did, we need to go back to the passage of play that started it all. France began their Group 1 campaign on Tuesday evening in New Jersey, and it was Senegal who settled the quicker of the two teams. The African side made the brighter start and looked the more comfortable in the early exchanges. But as the first half wore on, the European side gradually worked their way into the contest, and they found themselves well placed to break the deadlock before the interval. That is when the controversy arrived. Mbappé collected the ball and surged into the Senegal box, and as he tried to pull away from his marker, he went down after contact from Sadio Mané, the former Liverpool forward, now lining up on the opposite side. To the France players, and to a large slice of the watching audience, it looked an obvious foul. They appealed for a penalty straight away. The timing made it feel pivotal. France had only just begun to take charge after a sluggish opening, and a penalty in that moment would have handed them the chance to break the deadlock from 12 yards against a Senegal side that had started the brighter of the two. A goal there changes the complexion of the entire half. Instead, the opportunity to lead was waved away, and a contest the European side were only beginning to grip was left level. In the heat of an opening match at a World Cup, that is precisely the kind of swing that can shape a whole evening. At first, the referee wanted nothing to do with it. Iran's Alireza Fagani waved the appeals aside and signaled for the game to carry on. Then the video assistant referee stepped in. For the officials studying the replays, there was evidently enough in the incident to suggest a possible clear and obvious error, which is the only threshold at which they are supposed to get involved. The man in the middle was advised to go and take another look for himself at the pitch-side monitor. He walked over, he watched the footage back, and then came the part that nobody in a France shirt saw coming. After all of that, he still decided there had been no foul. That, in itself, is part of what made the sequence so striking. When a referee is sent over to the monitor for what is known as an on-field review, it is usually a strong signal that the video team believed the original call was wrong. More often than not, the official takes another look and duly changes his mind. Here, the opposite happened. Fagani studied the same pictures the rest of the world was watching, and rather than reverse his thinking, he held firm. That is a far rarer outcome, and it is a big reason the moment caused such a stir. The confusion only deepened in the seconds that followed. At one stage, the official appeared to gesture towards the penalty spot, and inside the New York-New Jersey stadium, the French support erupted, convinced the kick had been awarded, but the celebration proved premature. Speaking directly to the crowd to explain his call, the referee set out his reasoning in plain terms. In his judgment, it was Mbappé who had initiated the contact, which meant there was no offense to punish. Senegal's goalkeeper, Edouard Mendy, was waved up to take a goal kick instead. The reaction of the France forward said everything. The Real Madrid star looked utterly astonished, unable to take in that an appeal he so plainly believed was a certain penalty had been turned into a goal kick for the opposition. It is worth being clear about what that explanation actually means, because it is the hinge the whole decision swings on. When a referee rules that an attacker has initiated the contact, he is in effect saying the forward leaned or moved into the defender to bring about the collision, rather than being caught by a careless or reckless challenge. If that is genuinely what happened, then there is no foul, and there is no penalty. The judgment comes down to a single question: who was responsible for the two players coming together? On this occasion, the man in the middle placed that responsibility squarely on the attacker. So the argument that raged afterwards was never really about whether contact occurred. Everybody could see that it did. It was about who caused it. And on a question that finally balanced, the only verdict that carried any official weight was the one belonging to the man with the whistle. It mattered, too, that the player at the heart of it was Mbappé. When the most recognizable footballer on the planet goes down in the box on the opening night of a World Cup, the whole world is watching. and every replay is dissected frame by frame in real time. A marginal decision like this, involving a lesser-known name, might have passed with a shrug and a few seconds of debate. Involving the France captain on the grandest stage the sport has to offer, it was never going to be quietly forgotten. Refereeing decisions are picked apart at every World Cup, of course. What lifted this one well above the usual grumbling was the strength of the reaction, and crucially, where it was coming from. The BBC had brought in Darren Cann, a former Premier League assistant referee with experience at the very highest level of the game, to talk viewers through exactly these kinds of incidents. Even before the review had played out, he was in no doubt. He called it a penalty, explaining that he could see no contact with the ball and that the Senegal man had brought Mbappé down. As far as he was concerned, the only question was how long the formality of the check would take. When the spot kick failed to arrive, the experienced official refused to fall in behind the verdict. He said he could not support it, describing the incident as a clear penalty. And he revealed that his phone had been flooded with messages from some of the best referees in the world who were every bit as baffled as he was. That detail carried real weight. Disagreeing with an official in the heat of the moment is one thing for a supporter or a studio guest. It is quite another for a man who has worked the line at a World Cup final to say, live on air, that his contacts among the game's elite officials were just as lost for an explanation as he was. He went further still, admitting he was extremely surprised the referee had not pointed to the spot after what he regarded as a correct and proper review. Alongside him on co-commentary, Alan Shearer was just as bewildered. The Premier League's all-time leading scorer described the decision as bizarre, and his objection cut straight to the heart of the referee's explanation. The former England striker fixed on the challenge from Mané, whose left leg appeared to catch the France forward as he came across him. His point was a simple one, and it was hard to argue with. How, he asked, could Mbappé possibly have been the one to initiate the contact when he was in front of his opponent, with the defender arriving from behind him? To his eye, the only man who lunged was the Senegalese, and the only contact that counted was the defender's leg catching the attacker. I don't get it, he said. A blunt verdict that summed up the mood of millions watching around the world. What made the criticism so difficult to brush aside was that it came from two very different vantage points and landed in precisely the same place. One man had spent a career as a match official, reading incidents like this for a living, and judging them by the letter of the law. The other had spent a career as a center forward, on the receiving end of challenges like Mané's hundreds of times, knowing instinctively what a foul in the box feels like. The referee and the striker studied the same passage of play, approached it from opposite ends of the game, and arrived at the identical conclusion. That rare meeting of minds is what gave the reaction its real force. There is an important footnote to all of this, though, and it is the reason the row never quite tipped over into something more serious. The decision, for all the anger it stirred up in the moment, did not cost France anything at all. Before long, Mbappé settled the matter himself. He swept his side in front with a stunning finish, teed up by the excellent Michael Olise, and once that first goal had gone in, there was only ever going to be one winner. With the deadlock finally broken, Deschamps' team shifted through the gears, took a firm grip on the game, and pulled clear to a 3-1 victory. Their main man was not finished there either, adding a second of his own to complete a brace and put the result beyond any doubt. Tucked inside that display was a genuine milestone. With his goals against the Senegalese, the Real Madrid forward drew level with Olivier Giroud right at the top of France's all-time scoring charts. Giroud set that benchmark at 57 goals before he stepped away from the international game, and now the younger man has hauled himself alongside it. For a forward still firmly in the prime of his career to be sharing a national scoring record with one of the most reliable marksmen his country has ever produced tells you exactly the kind of trajectory he is on. On the strength of nights like this, the outright record looks certain to become his before too long. So let's return to where we started. How did a penalty that so many people were convinced about turn into a goal kick for the other team? The answer comes down to one judgment, and one judgment only. The referee decided that it was Mbappé, and not Mané, who brought about the contact. And having gone to the monitor and reviewed the replay, he saw no reason to change his mind. That single interpretation is what transformed a France spot kick into a Senegal goal kick, and it is why a former World Cup final official was left telling viewers that the world's leading referees could not understand the call. In the end, the scoreline spared everyone a far louder argument. France won comfortably. Their talisman took his place beside a national great, and a decision that might have shaped a tight match instead became a talking point rather than a turning point. For Senegal, it was a reprieve that ultimately changed nothing. For France, it was a frustration swiftly overtaken by events. But the disagreement at the center of it all, whether Mbappé was fouled or whether he brought the contact on himself, is exactly the kind of call that tends to be argued over long after the final whistle is gone.